If you're looking for proven ways to take your fundraising results to the next level, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Intentional Fundraiser Podcast, hosted by Tammy Zonker. Tammy has trained and led thousands of nonprofit organizations to collectively raise more than $500 million and is also recognized as one of America's top 20 fundraising experts. This is the podcast where Tammy equips and empowers amazing fundraising pros like you to transform your fundraising so you can transform the world. And now, let's hear from Tammy.
Today, I'm talking with Pat Duffy, co-founder of The Giving Block, a Shift4 company. The Giving Block is a platform that helps nonprofit organizations fundraise non-cash assets more effectively. The Giving Block, pioneers of the crypto philanthropy movement, developed the leading solution for cryptocurrency donations, making crypto and other NFT donations mainstream in the nonprofit sector. The Giving Block's team has since developed a stock giving experience built to empower even more donors to give non-cash assets and to help nonprofits accept donor advised fund gifts online as well. So today, thousands of nonprofits are using the Giving Block to fundraise more effectively from modern philanthropists. Due to Pat's unique experience and expertise in the non-cash giving, particularly crypto philanthropy, he has been featured in Time Magazine, Newsweek, U.S. News and World Report, the Associated Press, ABC News, and CNBC, just to name a few. He and his co-founder, Alex Wilson, were also awarded the Forbes 30 Under 30 recognition in 2022 in the area of social impact for their work at the Giving Block. We're so excited to have you on the show today, Pat. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Our pleasure. Let's just jump right in. One of the reasons that I reached back out to you and Alex has been on the podcast once and, of course, presented at our Transform 22 virtual fundraising conference, but you just published the 2024 annual report on crypto philanthropy. And it is so juicy that I wanted you to come back and talk about it. What inspired you to create the report and what do you aim to achieve with it?
Yeah, the annual report kind of started off like I think everyone's annual report does. It was just kind of covering us. It was the way nonprofits do it and companies do it. Here's kind of what we did over the last 12 months. Over time, it kind of became this report where we really covered crypto philanthropy more broadly. The focus of the report last year in particular was really trying to get more macro kind of industry level data and started to make some projections, recommendations, things for the market kind of as a whole. And then this year's report was largely focused on going beyond even just crypto philanthropy, but really making it the report that brings crypto data in general to the nonprofit sector. So we added kind of a market update, just knowing how crypto prices are performing, the ETFs rolling out across the stock market, Coinbase going public, all of these things that have brought crypto a bit more mainstream. We wanted to get nonprofits up to speed on not just what's happening in crypto philanthropy, but what's happening in crypto, because all of it impacts nonprofits kind of across the board.
Yeah, I saw a quote in the report itself. You said that with more investors than ever, prices are surging upward, the Bitcoin halving on the horizon, and cryptocurrency investments now accessible through the stock market. The nonprofit industry is poised for the most promising crypto fundraising opportunity in history. So it is an exciting time. Will you unpack that a little bit for us?
Yeah, definitely. I'm still, even this year, in like, I'll believe it when I see it for like the full blown permanent mainstream adoption of crypto in the nonprofit sector. But there are tailwinds right now that have never existed before. We talk about it like the internet, and a lot of people do. I don't think cryptocurrency is as transformative as the internet. Some crypto people will make that argument, but it's certainly as transformative when it comes to finance. It's the main way Gen Zs invest today. 83% of millennial millionaires, this is how they invest. Gen Xers have more money in crypto than Gen Z and millennials combined, even though a smaller percentage of them, they just have a bit more money, of course. It's kind of where money is going. So for a while, we started doing this in 2018. We've been betting on it. These trends have been emerging over time. It didn't kind of come out of nowhere. There's been hundreds of millions of users for years now. Now we're at like 600 million users worldwide. And with a great wealth transfer of $80+ trillion changing hands, 70 some odd will be going to heirs. When you look at how investment patterns are changing, a lot of the money that goes from today's kind of mega donors and the folks who are really sustainers at the nonprofit level into the hands of other folks within their family. So much of that money flows into crypto. And once money sits in cryptocurrency, you're so aggressively tax incentivized to give crypto and not liquidate it and give the cash. So like a big driver there is this tax incentive. It's the same thing that's existed for stocks. But if you donate an appreciated asset of any sort to a charity, you don't just get the write-off. The charity doesn't just get the money. You actually don't owe cap gains taxes on it. So if you're sending $1 million cryptocurrency gift, like we just got a $1.5 million Bitcoin donation today. If they liquidated that, depending on when they bought it, it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars in additional tax liability. So in short, what's happening for crypto philanthropy in general is just millions of people have this stuff. They're aggressively incentivized to give this way versus with their credit card or other options that nonprofits have. And if you combine that with the fact that right now, it's now for a couple months traded on the stock market, there's trillions of dollars invested in it. It's going a lot more mainstream than it's been before. Those tailwinds come together, and we've gotten to the point now where the majority of Fortune 100 nonprofits are fundraising the stuff.
It really is exciting times. How can nonprofits who maybe have held back, who have felt that it's risky, and now like there's again that momentum, those tailwinds that you're talking about, how can they educate their board members, their donors, their staff about these benefits? Like accepting the gifts, helping the donor avoid those capital gains. How can they convince them or educate them about the benefits and the mechanics of how to accept cryptocurrency as a charitable gift?
It's a great question. One of the first things we recommend is figuring out what problems don't actually exist anymore. So one of the biggest areas of hesitation is belief in kind of, at this point, imaginary risks that used to be very tangible, but no longer exist. Things like price volatility. Every solution just automatically liquidates it for US dollars. So like volatility is very real in the market. You're trading it. When you receive a donation that instantaneously liquidates 24 hours a day, that's not a consideration. Regulatory concerns, like is this a regulated thing, right? These Bitcoin ETFs on the stock market are trading in the top 10 very regularly now. It's a very mainstream mode of money, a mainstream mode of investments. BlackRock has, I think, close to $10 trillion in assets under management. Their CEO just goes in the news, seems like every day now to talk about it. That kind of stuff, just knowing that it's like very mainstream, how many people actually use it, how much money is in it, how legitimized it's become, how regulated the space is. Those types of concerns, taking them off the table and knowing that you're not going to have to deal with those is a big deal. We still meet a lot of nonprofits that hired a consultant in our 6 months into researching crypto. They're trying to figure out how blockchains work. They're trying to figure out like money transmitter laws and how they apply to them. And it's, 50 things that they brought up in board meetings for months in a row, trying to update their gift acceptance policy in a wonky way. And it's like, oh no, we've solved for some of these things. So talking to people who are doing it, whether it's a charity or a platform like us at the Giving Block, and starting there before you spend, 15 Saturdays in a row doing research, that's one of the biggest barriers. And then once you're equipped to accept it, like once you have a solution, you can take donations. A big thing is just getting sure that your team is ready, right? So if your team understands what's going to happen, this is the tax documentation, here's the link you pull when a donor needs an appraisal, taking some of those boxes, we see the same thing that we've seen with stocks historically. So many nonprofits are like critically under fundraising when it comes to stocks because they don't really know how to promote it to a donor, how to accept it. And it's arduous. They got to send it over to a brokerage or something like that. If the team is ready, then that's good. And then the final thing is making sure your donors know you take it. I cannot tell you how many donate crypto buttons are in the nonprofit sector just collecting dust because they're not in the ways to give menu and they're not linked from the donate page and they don't sit as an option at the bottom of the capital campaign email. They're not in the piece of paper you pull out of a direct mailer, no QR code you can hover over and send a gift. It's not in the folder at a major gifts meeting. No one knows it exists, which is why our website is an aggregator now. We get a lot of donors every day donating where can I donate crypto or searching that rather, and showing up to a platform like us, which we'd actually like to see go away because they're just giving to the charities they already support.
So there's preparing the internal mechanics, but then raising awareness, having conversations, including, as you said, those QR code or the links in your donor communications. Because you're right, most donors are not visiting your webpage, nonprofits, every day to see what's new, right? So again, just raising awareness. But I love that. I mean, that so many of those historical challenges or things that scared nonprofit organizations, they're off the table now. That's very encouraging. Yeah.
I think it's a huge development in general.
Your report shared that over 2 billion in cryptocurrency has been donated to charitable causes and that 56% of US top charities are accepting. Organizations like really recognizable No Kid Hungry, Care USA, Kaboom. What factors do you think are driving this significant growth in crypto?
Yeah, there's been three waves primarily. So the first wave, I would say we were doing this in 2018, 2019. It was like true kind of pioneer type mindset. Like this is the water project and save the children. These were nonprofits that went out there in the early days. Like they were putting wallet addresses, like without exchange accounts, just like slapping them on donation pages. And they were going to crypto conferences and like really trying to get out there and meet these folks. They were dialed in on the technology. They really wanted to learn. These are kind of like the go deep Web3 interested parties type nonprofits. There were a few dozen out there in the early days that were really taking it seriously. And then a few years later, we had another bull market going into 2021 in particular. That was a bit of a frenzy just because the prices were up so much and the market caps were so high. There was just so much money in crypto, but there was a lot less attention to the donor demographic and a lot less attention to the technology. So a lot of nonprofits came in during that phase. Thousands of nonprofits started taking crypto for the first time, but they really viewed it as a fad. They were like, we got to get this option up. We got to promote it pretty aggressively for a little while. And then when the prices came down, a lot of them kind of evaporated. They all still take crypto. Some of them have active fundraising programs. But there's a lot of people with, again, donate crypto buttons sitting on websites collecting dust that never got properly connected in the menu and aren't consistently marketed to the donor base. Over the last 6 months in particular, as the prices bounced back, and now over the last like 2, 3 months, I would say, is we've reached new all-time highs again. And the ETF's giving us some of the stock market. Now we're getting that generation of nonprofits, if we talked about those blue chips, where we always had some. We always had the United Way Worldwide, Save the Children, American Cancer, American Heart, St. Jude. Like they were relatively early. The rest of them have kind of come in and they're really kind of placing a bet on the great wealth transfer. It's just, again, the stats that I touched on. Young people have this stuff at a really staggering rate. The more money they have, the more likely they are to invest this way. The more they invest this way, the more aggressively tax aligned they are to give this particular donation method. And for any nonprofit who doesn't take it and actively promote it, they're just going online to find charities on platforms like us. And they're giving to the nonprofits that they haven't supported historically. Like they're leaving the nonprofits they support and giving somewhere else because they're not going to pay 200 grand in taxes for no reason. No matter how much they like your cause, they'll find a comparable alternative and initiate the transfer. So I'd say this generation of nonprofits, like the big wave and the push here is because like now that there's over $1 trillion in the US, over $1 trillion invested internationally and more crypto users than the population of North America, I think most of the big nonprofits are like, it would be dangerous for the future proofing of our major gifts program in particular to not take this a bit more seriously.
Yeah. You mentioned the age demographic. Beyond age, I mean, age is important, but in addition to that, what are the other characteristics of a typical crypto donor? Is there an industry, a location?
Yeah. In a high level, the best way to describe kind of crypto donors is like, we call it the greatest intersection of youth, wealth, and then capacity to give, right? You just put these things together. What you have are, generally speaking, younger people, but you have a lot of wealth concentrated in the hands of a smaller percentage of older crypto investors, like hedge funds and some of the billionaires out there. So
Mhm.
weird stat, but like one way to look at it, 94% of crypto users are millennials and Gen Z. Over half of crypto wealth is held by Gen X and baby boomers. It's very similar to when you look at like billionaire type statistics where you're like, oh, they only make up this fraction of a percentage point, but they have so much of the money. Now that crypto is in all of the retirement accounts in Canada and starting to become more commonplace in the US that from the stock market, it's very dominant from a percentage of people standpoint for younger donors, but even older donors kind of pivot into and out of it. So younger, to your point, is like one of the core demographics. Like it needs to be there as a more common option. But some of the biggest gifts we get annually are coming from people in their 50s, 60s, 70s. So like that's one thing we point out. The other piece is like how often they actually give big gifts. So the average gift size from a crypto user, depending on the year, is 30 to 80 times larger than the average donation to nonprofits. So when you look at the average online donation, it's between like 100 and 250 bucks. Crypto tends to be between 5,000 and 17,000 as an average transaction size. This is because crypto is the top performing asset class over the last 5 years, over the last 10 years. So much wealth is tied up in it. And the hyper appreciation has it more and more tax optimized over time. So you have these younger donors, you have people who have invested fortuitously, they've got really kind of well concentrated in it. Then when you look at their income, what's interesting is in addition to their investment, because of this alignment between the technology and the individuals who use it, they tend to be more educated. They tend to make more money. The average crypto user actually makes more money than the average individual in any city in America. So if you were to take even Silicon Valley or just take crypto people and put them in a city, their average income is higher. So very high average income, higher education. And then from like a demographic standpoint, male versus female, last year, we had a bit of a breakthrough where we got close to 20% women in the space. It used to be much smaller percentage point. And now this year, over the last few months in particular, the average percentage of women in crypto from the latest studies are between 28 and 35%. So about a third of crypto users are female now, trending to be a lot more kind of mainstream and evenly distributed across the genders.
Interesting. And what do you attribute that to?
I think it's just more mainstream adoption. I think there's like any population in general, when you look at trends and culture, like if it starts with one particular type of person, then kind of walls get built around that. It's the same reason you see concentrations of a particular type of people at a nonprofit. You'll see a nonprofit with a strong female leadership team become more and more female. You'll see industries that are just very male dominated where it's kind of harder to crack in. I think you had a lot of men in particular historically kind of go into engineering and cryptography. That's kind of where it started and it came out of that. And then even some of the political differences where men tend to gravitate toward more libertarian. Some of these things around crypto where you can own your own account and not keep it at a bank kind of really, I think, appeal to those kind of political demographics. I think there were a lot of features of the community and how it started that attracted a concentration of men in the early days. And over time, I think women also are just smarter about not throwing away their money. People talk about like starting companies, like 90 some odd percent of failed started companies are started by men. There's just like a level of risk taking that I think female investors tend to avoid when they know that it seems a bit silly. And now that some of that volatility has worked its way out of the market, I think some of the smart money on the female investor side is starting to come in because they know they're not going to lose all of their money overnight, where there seem to be more men willing to take that risk.
Yeah, I've been looking at a lot of the data out of the Indiana University Lilly School of Philanthropy on women's giving specifically. And I know the data says that women also tend to do more due diligence, to your point, more risk averse typically. And so, that due diligence does take time, but the evidence and that tipping point is apparent. So it makes sense that women are leaning into crypto more aggressively. So that's very encouraging. And certainly, you've mentioned a couple of times the transfer of wealth, this multi-trillion-dollar transfer of wealth that's coming to our younger populations, right? And in time, we do outlive you. We women outlive you men. And so,
Definitely.
so we will inherit long term and hold on to a larger percentage of that very massive transfer of wealth. It will be very interesting to continue watching that trend. The report discusses a lot about how to make certain that we're making it easy for donors to give to us, to give crypto or other non-cash assets. Can you kind of give us like the top tips or best emerging practices for easing that process? And how does the Giving Block platform help organizations make it easy?
I think the best way to think about it, because people, even when we were talking about this a moment ago, like crypto donor demographics, like who are crypto donors? Like one easy way to think about this is like there's two types of crypto donors. There are donors in your audience and donors outside of your audience. So there are people in your CRM, unless you're a very small, hyper local nonprofit in a particular part of the US, the odds of you having crypto investors in your audience is it's virtually impossible that they're not in there. So the first thing that we focus on is like, there's tens of millions of people in the US at any point in time that are most tax incentivized to give you crypto versus something else. Let's make sure if they're in your audience that they know this is an option. So that's where the simple stuff begins. This is the stuff a lot of nonprofits like to skip. Some nonprofits skip it because they're not that into crypto. So like any level of promotion of the crypto option is kind of a step too far for nonprofits who really just want to leave it as an option, let a donor hand raise into it and deal with it when it comes. And then there's the other type of nonprofit who are really bullish on the tech and excited about it because There obviously is this giant kind of cultural renaissance around it. It's just really top performing content, and a lot of people get very excited about it. And they like to skip those steps. They like to go right to how do we run crypto ads and search engine optimize for all these new donors coming off search? How do we kill it on Crypto Giving Tuesday and like run an effective campaign to match these gifts and grow this donor base? Not really thinking that there are crypto donors in your audience. Like that's a big piece of it. So discoverability. That's the passive discoverability of if I go on your site as a donor and I'm looking for the ways that I can send you money, how easy is it? And almost all nonprofits fail this test. So this isn't just for crypto. It's like every menu item is labeled for fundraisers, not donors. There's like planned giving tabs, which means nothing to anybody. And then it's like get involved is where you find giving options. So versus like ways to give. And like there's no link to ways to give from the donate button. The donate button only has a card option because you're so worried about like friction or transfers between those that no one can ever pivot and kind of opt out. That kills crypto. It kills stocks. It kills DAF. Every kind of big nonprofit, for the most part, has a very good system for kind of pivoting out of a card donation into one of these other gifts. Big nonprofits also, I mean, for DAFs, for instance, I mean, the average gift size can often be in the six-figure type range, making it really easy. If you have a secret shopper, someone who's not a nonprofit fundraiser, someone who's a friend and family, go on my site, find the crypto option, right? And if they can't find it pretty much immediately, that person's going on the internet and they're Googling, where can I send this crypto? Because they looked at you because they like you, but they didn't find it. They're not going to sit around all day. And if they're under the age of 50 in particular, they're not going to call you. They're not going to email your major gift officer. They're not going to download a PDF with brokerage instructions. They're not going to do it for stocks. They're not going to do it for crypto. They're not going to do it for DAF. So really easy to find on your site is one. Two would then be think about all the ways you fundraise already and just integrate it. And I don't mean integrate it as in like start running a crypto fundraiser too. Like you're already sending a capital campaign email. It's going out to all of your top donors and you've got a button on there that only has a credit card option. Do you think that's going to hurt your average gift size? Do you think it's going to attract those types of donors? It's like, probably not. So it's not just for crypto, but again, stock, DAS, even things like ACH, giving donors really clear alternate giving options in your direct mail, your major gifts meetings, whatever that might be. And then the final step is the fun stuff. Like we call this the crypto adventure piece, like these really big programmatic kind of changing donations, like the orangutan outreach was a $500,000 a year charity. They raised over $1 million in crypto, like tripled their budget with crypto fundraising just by like DMing NFT artists on Twitter. Like there's so much untapped opportunity to meet some of the most wealthy young donors in the world, some of the most wealthy project founders and company founders who are building in this industry where so much of the venture capital is going to grow your corporate giving program, to fundraise more effectively with like an NFT drop, like to change the ways you do auctions and invite young donors in. That stuff is really fun, but it's built on that foundation. If your existing donors all know this is an option, they can hand raise them and send you money in a few clicks. Once those boxes are checked, then the world's your oyster in terms of how kind of fun and exciting you want to get with it.
So cool. And I did see that orangutan case study on your website. So I would encourage anyone, and we'll include a link to it in the show notes, but it's super exciting. Who else is really doing it well?
Oh my, a lot, actually. As a percentage of nonprofits, like we always want it to be higher. Like there's so many nonprofits I can think of where it's like, it's one of the biggest charities in the world. They're using us as a solution. And we're like a year and a half into being on the platform. And we're like, could you please just link this in your ways to give menu? And they're like, well, we've got like 12 teams that need to coordinate on this. And we're like, oh God, you have like 2 million people in your donor database or 20 million or whatever. It's like, if you just told them once a year, you're like, by the way, Bitcoin's a thing. Like there's just so much money kind of sitting on the table. But the programs that have really, I think, crushed it over time, Save the Children did an awesome job. Like they have millions of Twitter followers. Like in the early days, they had this crypto option and they would, again, literally, like I said, occasionally be like, you can send us Bitcoin and Ethereum, these top cryptos. If you want to do that would be great. On Giving Tuesday, they would do some crypto Giving Tuesday posts and sprinkle them in. And then when they get crypto donors, the cool thing they do, Tori Rossetti at Save the Children is like a true pioneer on the fundraising side, is they steward them differently. And again, nothing kind of magical or crazy about it. If the crypto market's up, they get an email out to crypto users or donors who've given before. They're like, if you want to give now, just reminding you there's a tax incentive. And then when it's down, they shoot them emails where the market's down. Are there any friends you want to introduce us to? Any conferences you guys are attending? Like, where can we meet up and just stay in touch? And they steward them around crypto specifically. So they've killed it. Then another, I think, good example is the American Cancer Society. They, again, from this integrative approach, added the crypto option. This is years ago now. It feels like we just did it. But they were fundraising for cancer research. They had a $10 million goal. And all they did is they carved out $1 million goal and set it as a crypto goal and gave it a name. So they called it the Cancer Crypto Fund. They said, we want to raise $1 million in crypto. It'll be the first cancer research grant fully funded using cryptocurrency. They did a press release and just put it out there, and they raised $1 million, like I think in a week. Like they just put it out there. They just really made space, I would say, for crypto users to understand that like they're being taken seriously, they're being
Yeah.
invited in, and there's something that they can really participate in that's not just meaningful for the nonprofit, but helping them accomplish something that's kind of a piece of history, right? Be the first to do something. And I thought that was really powerful because they, again, weren't reinventing the wheel. They already had a really great way to fundraise. They didn't try to change who they were as fundraisers or make a new campaign. They said, we've already got something that's appealing to donors. Let's just make it a little more appealing to crypto users as well.
I love that. I feel like it checks the boxes on the key components that support the philanthropic psychology, right? Like I see you, like they do have a unique identity. Like I see you, you matter, you can make a difference. Here's how you can make a difference and be part of something special, like the first ever crypto
Yeah.
$1 million campaign. It's like super cool.
Oh, it's huge. I can't tell you how many times too, where nonprofits are like, how do we talk about this crypto thing? And it's, I don't know if you ever watched Mad Men, like the Lucky Strike
yeah.
it's toasted thing, where it's just like, no, everyone else's cigarettes are deadly, Lucky Strikes are toasted. Like, well, anyone could say this. It's like, yeah, but no one does. Like with this crypto, it's just like, how many dollars does it take to feed a family? And they'll be like, one, actually, for this program. So every $100 feeds 100 families. It's like, yes. It's like, well, you could just tweet every $100 in Bitcoin feeds 100 families. And now it's just a different piece of content. Do you know what I mean? It's like little things like that where you just sprinkle in where you're like, we're open to business for crypto donors. Every $1,000 in Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, et cetera, feeds 1,000 families. Like those pieces of content outperform all the other content. Every crypto press release we do with the charity outperforms all their other press releases. The crypto content outperforms all their other content. It's not like a magic bullet. It doesn't work if you have no audience to begin with. But it's these little things like that where, again, throughout the year, rule of seven, basic kind of marketing psychology. If someone's seeing this a handful of times throughout the year over year consistently, they know this is an option. Well, when that moment comes where they make a bunch of money on a trade or they have this real big tax incentive, they know where to go. They know you're there. And they just kind of show up and execute the gift when it makes sense for them.
Yeah. So interesting. Pat, where do you see crypto philanthropy evolving in the next 3 to 5 years? So get out your crystal ball. No one's going to hold you accountable for these things coming through. Where do you see the cryptocurrency and crypto philanthropy going over the next 3 to 5 years?
I think in general, I think because donors are on the younger side statistically, the tax education is still so low. I would say like one of the big drivers of like what would change how much money gets given, like there's a couple billion in donations that we know of that are just public. Like most platforms and dApps and community foundations, they're not like publishing their data. It's probably a lot more. Those are just the ones that we can actually pin down from like headlines and then the volume that we do. There's a lot of volume out there, but it should be way more. Again, there's trillions of dollars on this stuff and it's been outperforming everything. The tax incentive is so real. No one with appreciated crypto should ever give cash. You just shouldn't be because you're just eating capital gains taxes for no reason. It's a tax arbitrage move that unfortunately a lot of younger donors, they're doing the tax on TurboTax. They buy their crypto on Coinbase. They buy their stock on Robinhood. They're not working with advisors who are telling them this stuff from a tax or an RIA standpoint. And then nonprofits never bring it up as an option. So like that lack of connecting the dots there for these young donors who think of crypto as an investment, but not as a giving option. I think that bridge, getting connected as they get more educated, they start working with advisors as they get a bit older will be huge. And then I think nonprofits promoting it. Like as we see more of these big brands, we've just reached this tipping point where a lot of the big logos are not only taking the stuff, but actively fundraising it. If they just start saying this is an option more frequently, the same thing I think needs to happen with stocks. And it definitely needs to happen with donor advised funds. I don't know any nonprofit that asks for donor advised fund transfers. They just wait to see if they happen. Like if nonprofits start taking the initiative, not to run a crypto fundraiser, not to mint their own NFTs, not to create a crypto from scratch, to learn how blockchain works, just the very simple thing of being like, hey, this is an option occasionally. I think that in combination with the tax education could easily lead to a 10x in the giving volume. And over time, if the volume continues to go up, rather the market cap of the investments in cryptocurrency continue to go up, and then the wealth transfer comes in, they get infused with more capital. That plus that intersection of the tax education and the nonprofits appealing to this particular donation method, like the sky's the limit.
Yeah. Mm. I work with many of my clients, and we are intentional about identifying donor advised funds. And there's really only one source I know for prospecting that, and that's Definitive, Helen
Yeah,
Brown's tool. And even when we do fundraising events, we're now including an option like contact me about fulfilling my pledge through a donor advised fund. But to your earlier point, there's that manual process, like we're going to play phone tag. And to be able to put that on your website as a mechanism for transacting that gift, for giving that gift online through your website, just streamlines that and makes it so much easier for the donor. The bad news is we have a long way to go. The good news is we are on our way and we have tools that we've never had before, right? I mean, the evolution is exciting.
100%. The tools are there. And that's the other thing. There's so many nonprofits, even we work with, because they signed up for us to do crypto before we rolled out the stock or the DAF product.
Yeah.
We'll go on their site. It's like, and you have to go to legacy giving. And then in legacy giving, there's, ways to support. And then in ways to support, there's like support options. And then you go into support options and there's like appreciated assets. You click appreciated assets and it takes you to legacygiving.charity.org. And it tells you all these ways you can put it in the will. And then like in fine print at the bottom, there's an email for a major gifts officer who sends you like a PDF with brokerage instructions. And it's like, someone might do it, right? But like, what are the odds? Particularly the younger the donor gets, where like they can have a pizza in 15 seconds, like by clicking two buttons. It's just not going to work that way anymore. I think a lot of nonprofits don't know that you can put a form on your site that collects all that info and automates a stock gift. Same thing with donor advised funds. Like we use the Chariot integration. Chariot is amazing. Like our DAF product is largely just built on that. Every major donor advised fund platform is directly integrated through an API like Plaid. They click the one that they want to log into. They enter username and password as if they'd gone off your site to log into a DAF platform and initiate a grant, which is what they're doing otherwise, but they're still on your site in your giving form. And then it reads how much money is in the account, recommends a gift size, and then they can even boost it at the end. And now you've got the donor details. You've got what is a larger average gift size. The transaction goes through. And if they abandon the cart, you have like a stewardship journey. Like all of this stuff exists. I think a lot of nonprofits, unfortunately, similar to I think how credit cards took a while, they were convinced that like money just won't move easily because they put up a PDF with broken instructions for 5 years and no one ever sends it. So when you tell them we've got like an improved solution for it, they're like, well, why would I need that? No one gives stuff. And you get into this really kind of vicious cycle where same thing with crypto. We put up a crypto wallet on a page no one knows about. No one's ever used it. Why would we upgrade the tool? I think a lot of nonprofits need to just look into better ways to mobilize or mobile optimize their site, better tools for accepting different gifts and exploring some giving options that donors aren't actively asking them for just to get out ahead of it.
Yeah, it's good. The other thing you talk about in the report, so we talked about making it easy. First of all, raising awareness. We accept gifts like this, even raising awareness before that, raising awareness inside our organization that these are ways people want to give. There are such incredible benefits to them. The other thing that you talk about beyond the ease of use all the way around is the importance of transparency and building trust in the process. What are some of the ways that nonprofits can ensure that transparency and trust is built and that those components are present in their non-cash fundraising effort?
Definitely. So this is where I'll speak out of both sides of my mouth a little bit. And I don't think it is. It's one of those things where you're supposed to be all in on like innovative tech and automated processes, or you're on the other side of the fence, kind of more traditional. That complement of having the option to talk to a person, I think is huge. So like we, in the very early going, decided to not just build out the product, but do like a private donor services team. So like that gift that we just did, the $1.5 million Bitcoin gift, came from someone who definitely wanted to talk to a person. They hadn't given to this charity before. They wanted to understand the tax implications, how it's getting liquidated, where it's being sent. Okay, I sent to the nonprofit. Will they be dealing with price volatility? How do I get my tax receipt? Who does my appraisal? These big gifts in particular, very similar to like older donors. When you roll out this net new stock product where they can send it through a form, you don't have to delete that option where someone can get on the phone with your major gift officer or with their private donor team. I think that is huge. Just saying like, here's where you can call us. Here's an email where you can talk to somebody. even with crypto, a lot of people want to give anonymously. Some people don't want to give anonymously, but they just want the automation of the form. Sometimes it's nice to be able to talk to a person, be like, is my money going to go where I think it is? For donor advised fund giving, for stock giving in particular, you've got to have that complement. Like we've got the product that automates it, but so many older donors are going to want that traditional, like white glove, hands-on process that has a human touch. I think that's a huge factor for building trust, like showing them that there's a real person versus
Yeah.
steering into like this all in crypto thing where it's a wallet on a page. It's all digital. There's no human interaction. Some people love that, but I think it's good to have the complement. And then I would say the other thing is instructions. I can't tell you how many nonprofit pages don't have enough instruction on it where they're like, when you send this donation, you'll receive this tax receipt instantaneously. If you don't receive the tax receipt for whatever reason, check your spam or you can contact us. Here are the cryptos we take. If you don't see a crypto that you want to donate in this form, you can contact us here and we can like do it this way. Just giving the donor some explanation, some things like here's what's about to happen when you participate using our giving form for the first time or this process. And then finally, I need stewardship. People do not do asset specific stewardship. This is great for building the donor relationship because whatever they're investing in, like they tend to be somewhat passionate about. It's a nice way to stay in touch and like let them know that you remember the way they give and you're looking out for them. The assets are up. It might be a good time for you. It's an additional benefit instead of just always asking for something. And it's also one of the best ways to fundraise because if you as the fundraiser know when crypto is booming or that the stock market is also hitting all-time highs at certain points, being able to go out to your donors with that message is more effective than like you trying to time up their gifts with your end of year fundraising campaign. Because if that doesn't correlate with their portfolio, it's not going to make a difference.
Yeah. So good. So good. Last official question before we move into some rapid fire questions and wrap our time together. For nonprofits, maybe worried or maybe a little apprehensive about the technical complexity of accepting crypto donations or donor advice fund or stock donation through their website, why is the Giving Block the solution?
Yeah. So the main kind of zig when everyone else zags that we did, I think a lot of people don't know we weren't the first solution to try to do stuff like this. We definitely try to have the best solution and like to have the features automate certain things that other ones don't. But the big zig versus zag that we did was having this very consultative program component of it. So like all the things that we talked about, who on your team is going to fill out tax documentation? Where is the information of like qualified appraisers if a donor is going to give? We're updating our gift acceptance policy. What does that look like? Marketing team owns the ways to give page. Legacy Giving owns DAF. Major Gifts owns stock. Direct Appeals is going to own crypto giving. How do we coordinate these things? Like, where do these things sit? Just having a program where it's like you have step-by-step instructions and then the support of the giving block process that automates the activation checklist. Everything is built into activation checklists. Everything's built into playbooks and formulas. And anytime you get to a step that you're taking where you don't know to go like left or right, should I have separate pages for these giving options? Should I combine them into one? Like, we have the support of the giving block, which is ultimately our support team, but it just funnels into our Slack as a company. So it's a direct through line to our entire marketing team, to a bunch of development officers and fundraisers that we've hired over time, crypto experts, NFT experts, founders, myself and Alex. That whole journey kind of goes through in a very kind of handheld process, our program. And then any kind of stumbling points in the program, we have a direct team that kind of handles those questions, not only for the nonprofit, but for the donor. So I would say the big thing is like, where everyone else stopped at a product, we kept going and developed a program.
Love it. Love it. Well, we certainly have appreciated the partnership that we've had and have a lot of faith in the Giving Block solution because of that, because it's the platform, it's the systems, it's the people, like the end-to-end solution. So bravo, well done. Lastly, we typically wrap the episode with those rapid fire questions that I've been talking about. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
You're ready. You're ready. All right. First question, Pat. What's the best fundraising advice you've ever heard?
It's got to be ask questions. I mean, it's from the crypto experience, but also before that, like when I was working at a nonprofit, a lot of fundraisers, I feel like very similar to salespeople, right? They want to have the answers. They want to know that thing they can say that gets them over the line. How do I segment my audience? Which demographic do I target with this appeal? Like, when do I feature this option? What do I set the ask number at? Like all of these things. There's not nearly enough kind of going in there and being like, I don't know the first thing about, like, if it's crypto, like, I don't know anything about this. Like, you tell me how you want to give this or when you want to give it. Like, how'd you get into it? Who do you talk to about this? How do you even invest in this stuff with platform? Just asking people questions and trying to like figure it out from scratch versus trying to come in with like a game plan and a formula. That's always been the most effective with me. And the best fundraisers that I work with, they always have some sort of a game plan. They don't just go in blind. But the minute it goes like a little bit sideways in a meeting, like they're just presented with something that they weren't expecting, they don't try to get it back on course. They just sit there in the pocket with them for 3, 4, 5 digging questions and just settle into whatever that is. The more questions I hear fundraisers ask, I feel like the more effective they do.
Yeah, agreed. Curiosity is such a powerful tool. What book do you recommend to our audience and why?
Question. I would say thinking fast and slow. I think it's a really interesting way to understand like how people think. It's good for figuring out just psychology in general. I think it's helpful for outer psychology, but it's also just good for productivity, understanding where your limitations are and how to kind of operate more efficiently.
Yeah, good. What are the three most important traits you think a successful fundraiser must possess?
Well, you hit on one, which is definitely like intellectual curiosity. Like it's again very similar to sales. Some people can master a pitch and they're very good, like on the call or whatever. And then someone just brings up that something happened in their personal life, and you just see someone nod and go right back to their talking points, and you're like, "What are you doing?" It's not
Yeah,
just curiosity around the product or getting to know that person or what's going to get you over the finish line, but some people really want to know what makes that person tick, why they're here. They want to know going into that conversation, how I can do this conversation differently than my last one. They're not looking for a playbook so they can get over the thinking part. Like the thinking part is the fun part. I think intellectual curiosity is a huge one. Another one that fundraisers, I think, are afraid to say is ambition. Like, I think the nonprofit sector is loaded with it, and people are almost from a puritanical sense taught to avoid the fact that they're trying to get ahead in life, that they're trying to get a promotion or make more money or accomplish more for the organization. That energy at nonprofits, when it's not toxic, of course, like when someone is still not at the expense of other people they're working with, or not trying to get someone to give more than they're comfortable giving, but they really just want to take the organization to a new height, or really kind of find self-fulfillment through their career. Nonprofit sector shouldn't just be for like volunteerism or the fact you want to change the world. Like when you get those hyper motivated people, I think that's enormously valuable. Again, so long as it's not toxic, there's a cultural component there. And when you find that balance, it's great. I won't do it there. I think those two things are huge. Yeah.
yeah, agreed. Those two are amazing. What's your favorite fundraising application or tool?
My favorite one right now is called Momentum. So Nick, their founder, is awesome. It's using AI. People are using AI for a lot of things right now. What they're using it for is the best way to describe it is almost like a virtual fundraising assistant. So the ability for it to look into your CRM and just pull in things like donors' birthdays and just put them on your calendar and like recommend messages that you can send and then tune them up over time based on like open rates and response rates. Like the way that it builds out to-dos and like a really strategic approach to fundraising, like I think they're doing it the right way versus just kind of doing data assimilation. Like a lot of people are using AI for writing prompts kind of as a one-off basis. It's a very comprehensive solution and they've been gaining a lot of traction.
Very cool. I have not heard of that one. I need to check it out. What is your favorite conference and why?
Oh, Community Boost by
Yeah.
far. I still love going to the conferences in person just because I love the in-person elements. But there is something about like the way over time, just over the years, I've gone to some of the in-person ones where I don't know, some of the keynotes or the main presenters are just like very clearly sponsors and everything just kind of routes back into the exhibit hole and the cutting edge stuff isn't all that cutting edge or it's like not properly audited. Like it's clearly kind of an afterthought. I'm starting to see a lot more of the same presenters and topics and some consultants who I call ask harder consultants in the nonprofit space. I'm seeing more of those, which is like rather than thinking about how you're communicating or who you're talking to, it's like, people will tell you you can't ask 15 times on a Saturday back to back, but I'm telling you wrong. Like I'm getting a lot less of that from Community Boost. They're really bringing in interesting people. It's all virtual. I'd love to see them take it in an in-person direction in the future. I think they're going to be the biggest conference in the space over time. I think virtually they already are.
Yeah, I've spoken there a few times and I know they have like 25,000 registered participants. It's huge.
It's
Yeah,
massive. Anytime I
massive.
present, there's 1,000 people in the room. I'm like, I
Yeah,
can't believe this. I don't deserve this. It's people at all, for sure. But like, good for them. However, they're pulling it together.
yeah, amazing. We'll include a link. I just saw a promotion. They've got their next conference open for registration. And so we'll include a link in the show notes so our listeners can check it out and get registered and really experience it themselves. It's pretty phenomenal. All right. Last question. Knowing what you know now about fundraising, what advice would you give your younger self? Which I feel weird asking that question because you were named 30 under 30. So you're already like younger, but you are wise. You're wiser now than you were, aren't we all? What would you tell your younger self?
Yeah. Crypto years are dog years. That's the other thing. I don't know if you ever see the memes, but like they have all these memes of like what looks to be like a 74-year-old man just like holding a cup of coffee, looking out the window, and it'll be like who says crypto is difficult? Like I'm 28 and I feel great. I mean, the same thing we see at our company and we see it at other companies and nonprofits. It's for fundraisers, it's for the organizations in general. Like think with a first principles mindset, like what are you trying to accomplish? There's so much that everybody's doing that you're just doing because you started doing it. And now it's a thing that you began working on. So you're trying to make it better, even if it kind of doesn't matter anymore, or there's an approach that you heard someone else was doing. So you just kind of start doing it and you're trying to carry forward legacy fundraisers or programs that you have because there's so much sunk cost fallacy in there and it's taken up 80% of your mind share. Like for fundraisers in general, I think it's the same for everybody. Like when you sit at your desk in the morning with a cup of coffee, like what are you about to spend the next day, week, month doing? And is it actually the best use of your time? Or are you about to sit in on 14 meetings where every time you sit on you're like, this could be an email? Just taking back that first principles approach, like what is actually the thing that I should be doing today that's going to have the biggest impact? Because usually I end up being wrong. Anytime that I have that internal assessment, I'm like, yeah, half of these meetings are useless. I shouldn't be doing this. I'm just doing it because I've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, it's on my calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So great. Pat, it's been amazing to talk with you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I love the questions.
Oh, well, our pleasure to have you. I've learned so much. I'm sure our listeners got some really juicy nuggets to enhance their fundraising through crypto and donor advice funds and accepting stocks online. If you want to learn more about Pat Duffy, the Giving Block, crypto philanthropy, or any of the other resources we discussed today, check out the links in the show notes. And keep on transforming your fundraising so you can transform the world. We'll catch you next time. We did it, Pat.
That was great. I love the way you run this podcast.
The Intentional Fundraiser Podcast is a Fundraising Transformed original. It's hosted by me, Tammy Zonker, founder and president of Fundraising Transformed, where we help equip and empower fundraisers, nonprofit leaders, and board members to transform their fundraising so they can transform the world. Visit fundraisingtransform.com/podcast to subscribe to this podcast and subscribe to my newsletter to get fundraising lessons, tools, and helpful resources delivered straight to your inbox each month. If you want my help with taking your fundraising to the next level, become a member of my Fundraising Transformers community as a growth member and join me live each month where I'll teach you the same strategies I use to lead, train, and coach thousands of nonprofits, social service organizations, healthcare foundations, private schools, colleges, and universities to collectively raise more than $500 million, including a single gift of $27.1 million. As a member, you can participate in my Ask Me Anything sessions every month and get answers to your burning questions. Chat with other growth members inside our private and safe online community about what you're working on, struggling with, and share lessons learned. And get instant access to my growing library of on-demand self-paced training classes. New content is added every single month. Learn more about becoming a member at fundraisingtransform.com/growth. Talk soon.